for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine. So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. It's one of my 3 videos since I came back from the homeland. So this one completes the Trinity in a way. I don't have much time left because the sun is gradually coming down and I am in the Alps again, as you can see. So I'm finding my ways to upload this video. So whenever you find them on internet, it means that I found a way. So I'm still, as you know, in a temporary situation, and somehow I'm feeling called to not have a permanent station because I'm in this intense spirit mode training, and basically I'm being shown by my guides, my family of light, that I'm not supposed to be pressured into sharing content and creating anything like that, because first and foremost, as you know, I've been through a very intense, challenging period where my human self had to go through the most probably advanced, amazing training of my life and go where no human has gone before. And the second part is they don't want me to be pressurized because of what I'm doing now, because we're starting a new part of the training since I came here. So let me give you a quick summary. I want to keep you updated as to what's happening. It's been intense because I haven't been here probably even a week since I started feeling this intense upsurgence of light. And I've shared with you that the moment since I came here, I was given the awareness that we're here to resurrect Aurea, which means my genuine essence, which was dormant for so long, and because I had to endure so much trials. And since I came here, everything started happening easily, organically, almost like I didn't have to do much. I just had to, what they show me, because I reconnected instantly when I came here with my light family. And before, it was like being almost for a year blindsided, you know, and blind spotted and searching for my own answers and being independent, where they were just hovering around in a way. And my human self, it had to go through this, and I'll explain why later, and why this is so in these initiations that are here to help with the missions that we've came here to see it at the human seed level. So easily I reconnected, and they were giving me all these answers and responses. So I started channeling and doing automatic writing, like pages and pages, like a madwoman, truly. And I was so super buzzing and hyper after such a long time, which you can imagine in my case felt amazing. So one day I did this channeled automatic writing in which everything came through and the entire journey was complete. Not the channeling I shared with you previously, which was like my own summary of the journey, but an advanced extended version of our mission and what we are here to do, which was it's a more advanced understanding. And I'll share probably the entire content because it's a long channeling and it's quite a lot to handle and to take in, to process, to understand what's happening at the greater levels of creation. So I'll share that on Patreon, and maybe at this time when I don't have internet, I'll record some of the videos if I find a time, because I'm undergoing like daily work nonstop. So it's pretty intense for me, you know, here. Day goes by very fast, and sometimes it's just writing for hours. But anyway, I'm going to try to record some videos, which I'll later, once I do have a permanent basis again in a home and internet, which I'm hoping will be fine. I'm hoping until the end of this year for sure. But always in divine timing, and then I'll be sharing on the content again and continue the work and what they're showing me, channeling the light body course, because there is a certain thing I came here to teach specifically, although what they showed me is the mission we're doing as a group has nothing to do with the collective. They said it's not about teaching, basically we're bearing a few witnesses, and that's all, because I'm going to explain why and what they've given through this transmission to me. So they said that since I came here, I basically, all I had to do was jump on the bandwagon, which means I had to locate, they had to locate a specific point in time in which I'd come here, which is interesting because even before coming back here, and I know it's in a temporary basis, I was receiving these visions sometimes when I just closed my eyes and I could see my homeland, but not the previous village where I lived, but this town a little further, and I kept seeing visuals of it, and I was getting very sad, like longing for it, which was actually already a distant call. It was already calling me, the place, the spirit of the place. So the first thing I did, which was a super windy day, I shared with you, I went on the top of the mountain pass where this carved, I call her the White Lady, but it's basically, it's like this elvish figure, this feminine face carved in our mountains. It's very famous if you've been to our country before. And I went to her and I prayed with her. I sat with her, which was super cold, terrible. And this was the day when I started putting my roots down here again. Was fantastic weather just in time. You know, there's no coincidence. It's truly in the workings of spirit. But I came to her, I felt this pull, this longing, and I asked her for her blessing and her assistance in this journey, which is probably why, because I followed all the steps correctly, everything started unfolding like I was at this quickening again, this quickening spiral of the mission, because before everything felt like this long, enduring journey, which is kind of never ending. It was just like treading, you know, the mud in the trenches, right? So it was so interesting because they show me, because I thought I need to do something specific now to complete the cycle, and they said no, just coming here, it's already complete. So they told me, my group told me that basically all we needed to do was get into that, jumping into that timeline, getting into the right time alignment, coming to this place, because everything was already seated before. And just by coming here, I actually started downloading everything which was seated here previously automatically. That's why the changes were so fast, even in terms of my physical wellness and health and well-being. And you could probably see the difference in the videos that I made before. And these last 3 videos, when I'm already here in the homeland, doing this next, setting up the stage for the next advancement of the mission. So that's the first thing they told me. They said the connection was instant, and they said they couldn't interfere before, because remember, when we do any kind of work, whatever kind of being you are, a galactic being, when you come to be a human, when you have a human mission, the human aspect, the human counterpart has to be the one that walks through the gateway, that walks through the initiations, because the work being done is for the human child. Remember, we're doing the work on the human template. And that's why I've always talked about this ascension from the galactic perspective being a physical ascension, which is a mission of many advanced star beings, many calling themselves starseeds. But in this whole writing, which was pages and pages, they revealed to me something that I never knew about before, which was written kind of like the story of spirit and how life force informs all of life into the new processes that spirit actually envisions. And you can see, or imagine spirit as the great mother, the great spiral of the mother. And they told me that it's not just that I myself am here on earth for the first time from the perspective of star group representatives, because many groups have been here before on and off the planetary station bases. So they said it's not just that I'm here first time. They said we as a group, as a consciousness collective, and a certain type of consciousness that we're holding, a specific frequency, attainment, in who we are and what we do as generating and translating currents of life force that come directly from spirit. And I've already explained once before, we're called the Tantrikas, and because we're literally encoding the Trinity principles. And it's kind of like, if you need something from a specific language translated into your own native language, right? You need a certain specific set of tools to translate it. And this is the same, right? So these light encodings come in a way that life force from spirit, which is just pure essence, can be translated, and it moves out into creation and goes out into diversity and several fields, right? We call this the field work. So that's what we do in spirit. And they told me we've never been into any type of embodiment before. They said because there is this false notion of understanding, because remember, on earth we don't have all the understanding yet, and what we don't have understanding for yet, we often fill in the blanks or distort the knowledge. It's what we do. It's what we're known for, as the human mind so far. And instead of just being open and saying we're kind of humble here, we don't know, we kind of fill in the blanks ourselves. So we make false assumptions, and there's several of them, as you know, in the New Age movement specifically. There's a lot of false ideas that, you know, anything can become just embodied like this, you know, people calling themselves, I'm the Elohim, this and that. And it's basically descended aspects or offspring of a specific, they call this vibrational, what are they called? Differentials, right? Because in the true creation, there's principles of embodiment. There's principles to everything. So you can't just be this type of being and serving this purpose in creation, then you just jump off. There's beings who are, I'm not going to say the word advanced, but they have a specific position, which is just that position. So what they told me, they said, we've never been put in such a spot. But when we were working with what we usually do best, you know, what we do, what's our purpose in the calling of the Great Spirit, when we translate these currents and generate these currents of life force and kind of like how they communicate within different streams of life, they said one time, specifically, all of a sudden we felt a change. We felt like a ripple. And because we're so connected and so close to spirit at that time, in those terms of who we are, and also why I'm so connected to spirit, and often people don't understand my natural connection. They think it's been earned or learned, and it's not been like that. It's just intrinsic to me as a being who I am. And they said, we're very close to the nature of God, and it's kind of like the Elohim are a bit like above us. And it's almost like they stepped down and through the transmission, through the invocation, they've approached us. But they said this time was different because we usually communicated with these currents of life force. And then this time it was a more direct connection. And what this connection caused was there was a calling from the Great Mother, because there was novelty within the inscription of the life force. There was change because you know, even in the scripture, even in the Bible, we have the terms new heavens and the new earth. There's, you know, there's an innuendo about there being novelty, there being newness. But we've, again, as humans, distorted that and give our own descriptions and version of what we perceive that to be. So in truth, in creation, there was this slight, very subtle moderation. But within that inscription, there was a new level of Illumined Union, which means, right, I always represent it like this, in the sense of cosmic Christ, which is a course I channeled once, but then all of this year happened in between and I couldn't present it, which maybe one day I will, for sure, I guess, when I'm called and how I'm called. But there was this specific showing that Illumined Union are aspects of life that move out and expand into creation, then come back into unity. And it's kind of what we know is in-breath and out-breath, but at the creation level, that's kind of different, and it occurs at the spirit life force level. When I talk about life force, it's not vitality I'm talking about. It's not the human aspect of what we call life force to be. Spirit life force is, again, an upgrade of the essence of that, which we as humans experience as our life force, which in a way also responds to that, it corresponds to that, because at every level has all of the levels inherent, right, within it. So in those terms, there was a change. There was like a different soundscape. There was like a different stream of information coming through, and we felt that. So in those terms, everything, all of life in creation was being moved up again, closer to what we call God or Source or Divinity, Godhead. And because of that change, the way communication through spirit comes, and it informs different levels of life. We sometimes know that as the multiversal scheme of things, like us being multidimensional. But what they told me is we were not multidimensional beings. We were universal beings, our group. But in order for us to become physical too, to have our place in the embodiment, we needed to become multidimensional, which means spreading, creating aspects of ourselves. And I'm one of these aspects, right? One of these extensions. So there was a change. And that means that eventually this differential, like the difference, right, between the way we hold vibration in different aspects. Like you can't just jump into, let's say, embodiment when you're like here. And again, has nothing to do with being more advanced. It's just serving different aspects of life. And you can't just like here, you just jump into embodiment. So because this alteration was there and this change occurred, we were approached, and several aspects of life needed to be touched again. Because since that moment in that change, imagine this, imagine a sphere of reality, sphere representing spirit. And imagine these lines going up and down, right? there needed to be reverberation through all the multidimensional layers. All of these aspects of life needed to be informed about this change, because that's how things go. And the way and the reason I know this is because I'm a part of this group that works with these life force encodings and translations. So that's why they tell me that in a very simple matter. It's very easy to understand. I even explained it to my mother just recently. She's like, she's not as bright about these things. Sometimes they feel too complex. But she's like, you explained it such simple terms. It's so well. And she understood it, because I always tell you, truth, even though it's complex, it's simple when you know how to get right down into the core of the truth. So all these aspects, right, let me return to that, needed to be informed. And for those aspects of life, sometimes we call them different star constellations, like different types of beingness. We say Arcturian, Sirian, Pleiadian, right? All these aspects of life, all of these were informed because it ripples out, right? It has a reverberation aspect, like life force, right, in itself. It's like all of life communicates because it's all basically one and interconnected. But those aspects that were in embodiments, let's say what we sometimes call locked in the matrix, or locked into physicality, for quite like locked in time or space and time, and without the direct connection, those aspects are basically lost, like for the time being, didn't have the direct access to life force of spirit, didn't have that connection, they weren't informed. So our job was multiversal. It had many aspects to it, and the most important one was to get that seed of Illumined Union, which I talked about, remember, last year. Especially, we made many videos on Patreon, how the seed of Illumined Union, we managed to plant it because it needed to go through all these levels and reverberate through what, we call it from that 13th octave, right? The octave of spirit in this universal design, how it's designed here, from 12D, and moved through all these densities, reaching the 3D level up to the 1D, which is the core of the planet. It needed to go and be planted at the seed level, at the root level. But it had to be done not just planetary wise, but the human self wise. It needed to be planted in the template of the planet and then into the template of the physical human. So here's where it gets interesting. That's one of the reasons why we had to be physical. So imagine like these beings who are representatives, star representatives that always been on Earth. It's different for them, and they're often called starseed, and that's what they told me. You always say, I'm not a starseed, which is kind of true, because I'm not. It's like we are the seed of the seed. We are the seed of the one, which means we are inherent. We're encompassed in all of these densities. Hence, our assignment was to get, because like I said, we have this purity of being so close to the nature of Godhead, to come and to plan this and to bring it forth, bring our essence, right? This pure essence of immaculate design, because being so close to spirit and working with life force, we're the ones to do it. So moving through all these levels, informing them, especially those kind of like closed in or entrapped aspects that hadn't had the opportunity to be awoken directly, they had to be like informed from within. Like, you need to go into the station, you need to go to the planetary station, right, in order to inform, because it can be done directly, so you're doing it indirectly, if you know what I mean. So when this occurred, this mission was like two-sided, right? One was to plant the seed of this awareness, and this is what I was doing for years when my own light team, Aureus, has been sending these currents of life force through me. And then one day I just got the message, the seed was planted. That was last year, I think, before summer. And during the summer I started the galactic pulsar of light teaching and activation they were showing me. And only now I got the full understanding why we actually did the pulsar, how this reverberated out through all the other levels, and informing them that this was done. And Earth herself needed to invoke the call and have that reverberate into all of life. So they gave me this analogy today that it's almost like, you drop the sound and you drop it to the bottom of the well, and then at the bottom of the well the sound starts to echo itself back. So it reverberates back and you can hear your own reflection or your own sound, your own voice. That's what they said. We needed to have our essence, this pure essence of what we do as tantrikas, as masters of life force, and how we encode it and translate it, and to bring that ripple back to us. This is how they knew, through my own embodiment. Like, that's when we need to be physical, to have a reflection that it's done and when it's done. So at that point, if you remember, when I started doing the pulsar right after that, it was to send out a call to other streams of life and all the other inherent densities moving back up, because this is, remember, it's a looping spiral, goes upwards and downwards. The light, remember, it always descends. The light does not ascend. The light always descends into realms of creation, or realms of different aspects of matter, right? So what's actually ascending is physicality, right? It's bodies. It's the awareness of a specific configuration of life that is now receiving a new impulse. It's becoming new. Hence the words Illumined Union. And for me, it's not about twin flames, as you know. Illumined Union is like a process of creation that's happening at this time. And so I was not just a messenger of this throughout the years, but for people to witness through me, and for me to have a direct human experience, because this body, this human was used, this body is volunteered, it sacrificed itself, because it was a part of the extension of that group. And I was the one to do the job. So they said the seed, it only takes one. They said it only takes one seed, because to plant the seed means it's not something you can teach. It's what's naturally inherent within every other seed, because they're all connected, remember. Hence the one is already the all. The words are not meant, it's only needed, or one is enough in terms of you are the one, the only one. No, not the only one, but the one who volunteered to get the job done, because of the consciousness level where we come from and the work that we do. And then that seed planted informs all the other seeds and ripples out. And when it's seeded into not just the template, the core of the earth, which is a planetary station that provides life, but into the template of life, which is our human body. And when the human could activate that, when the human could go through the initiations and become the seed and the gift of life, then this human, this body, that naturally is inscribed into the human template and becomes therefore available and susceptible to all. And hence that means it's not something you can teach, or it needs to be, like you need to teach it. Like, certain other beings who were here, they had missions where something, specific knowledge had to be transferred or taught to others or passed on to others. But they said what we do is more individual. We're very individual in how we work in our missions. But it's interesting because we need witnesses, because when enough people witness that and they know that this is what's happening, they open up the collective field that more can happen, like we can speed up the process. Hence it's important to, why I was also sharing all these messages. And remember where I started, it's like had a total different significant meaning that now, where I am now, because there's like stages of this. And what we were moving now, they're calling the stage 3. So I'll talk more about this on Patreon because it's more complex. One day when I finally get my gear and my equipment and things we need here on Earth to get the translation across. But it's very interesting because they told me they were so happy. They said this mission doesn't come without risks. I could have easily lost my body 3 times last year, and only the consciousness, the Spirit of Christ helped me to move through this. And it was a very risky business in a way, but they were very hopeful. They said they were so hopeful that I will be doing it because I don't know, I still don't know why me. I don't know why, because I doubted myself so often. But they told me that the human needed to move through this transgression. I'm going to talk about the points of transgression on Patreon, how this was calculated, because everything was seen. Imagine these beings seeing that from a larger vista of life. What they told me is from the moment a separation happened, the plan for unity coexisted simultaneously from that starting point. This is something that we often call the beginning and the end, these points being the same. But the separation and unity always coexist. So from the moment where these aspects of life separated themselves, there was a plan for unity. And this plan had like stages, right? So like we on Earth receive these mission upgrades and changes gradually. Hence, same applies, right? As above, so below at our higher level teams, right? Our groups of light. So they're passing this on to us. So when the human is going through the murky waters and, doing its own, digging the dirt job, mining the fields, it means the human is growing into this. And this, of course, includes growing pains and difficulties and challenges in the physical sense. And remember, I talked about these beings and my growing pains, my chronic pain, and they told me exactly why and how I sacrificed myself actually, for the benefit of the whole, for this plan and the group, and why it had to be me and why it had to be masked, because it all played out in such a way that I still can't believe the intelligence of spirit and how we managed to pull through. And my story apparently obviously will still have a happy ending, because they told me many times before, I have the knowledge of how to drop the body and move upwards, but I'm not going to use it until we get the mission done. It's a we. So it's very yesterday I was so psyched. I was so excited. I was really happy because I felt this shift, like it's finally over at this stage, which lasted so long. And it's basically those transgressions that were calculated, they were pre-seen, they were witnessed by those beings, because they know that there's a position as well. There's those aspects of life that don't want to unify, they don't want to be a part of this divine design and divine plan, and how all lives moves closer to unity. That's why it all needed to be calculated, how to also involve and digest these aspects instead of like secluding them. And we couldn't bypass that. There was no way. We had to go straight through it. And hence this happened. And I'm going to talk about this and how they told me one day, I'm channeling in the morning and I just get these words, the phantom menace is now gone. And I was just so happy, because in the moment, at an instant, I knew what it meant. And I'm just feeling like this opening around me, like when my human self went through this, the human self needs to be awake to that. It has to be innocence of the human child here, because the work, again, let me remind you, it's a group of light beings mission, but the work done is at the human level. This is why it's tricky, right? So the human needs to pass through this and through the rings of fire, several of them. And it has to, at the end, crack the code and move through this. And I've done it. And that's what they told me, that it hasn't never been done. The seed of this, what we're seeding, what we're planting now, hasn't been brought here at this level. And through the human to like the final exit. You know, it's funny, just a few days ago, I see this song and it's called The Final Exit. And it's kind of like the summary of my life in the last year. But now this is the exit. This is the gateway through which the human self emerged and was victorious, because it did the work, it did the job. And I'll explain more on Patreon when I read you the whole channel writing. And those of you who are excited about that, I will inform you. I'll probably write on Instagram and on YouTube when the work is back on and when I'm settled. I'll keep you updated via written posts, because I can do that. I'm only using phone internet now. But let me just tell you, if I drank, I'll get a bottle of champagne or something. But I'm just celebrating internally because it feels good. But at the same time, I didn't have much room to just rest and just be, because the moment this was complete, I was thrown into this new level of this light body training. And they told me, yeah, we need to do it now. It's like getting busy. I'm like, oh, great. All my life has always been about training. But remember, what I recently had this dream, and I was telling someone that I have these three aspects of myself. One is this ET light being self that's totally detached from everything in the world. It's so neutral. It doesn't even sometimes care about the outside world and conditions. I have this beautiful, graceful, feminine self. It's so just needing to be loved and be loved, and it's just so soft. And then I have the inner child, which is so radiant and joyful. And all of these three need to be cultivated and nurtured simultaneously. So you can imagine most of my day being in this training mode and channeling and getting the messages and doing the work and doing the activations they're showing me. And then at the same time needing to also do that. And then I totally get it why they told me now I'm not supposed to have internet until this is complete, because it will be too much for my human nature, for my physicality, because I'm already overwhelmed most of my time. And sometimes I'm in such a high elevated energy and it feels amazing, but the next day my body has to catch up and I'm going to feel a downfall and I'm going to have to allow it to catch up and just do the integration work. So it's just amazing, when I'm going to read you the whole writing there, it's much more fluid and, than when I do the actual speaking. But I wanted to save that for Patreon, for those of you who are actually also supporting me in a physical sense, supporting the path, supporting the mission. Because I've recently shared my struggles with you. It's been difficult because I've been mostly doing spirit work, not as much sharing the content. So it was difficult for me in terms of physical living and supporting myself. And it's still something of a big adjustment for me to make and to accept. So if anyone is ever called or guided to make an energetic exchange, I'm thanking you in advance. Thank you for your support and all the love. Until then, when you see these videos uploaded, for a while I won't have internet, so I don't know when the next thing comes out. But I'm always there, remember, always doing the work. I don't just disappear and, you know, say, what the heck? So thank you again for all your support. Just like I'm doing the work behind the scenes, you can support behind the scenes as well. But you can also always get in touch with me. I have Instagram, and yeah, on YouTube, I'm going to try to write it up. So I'm going to share much, much more when the time comes. I'm still keeping some things just to myself for now, which is good, how it needs to be. But when this is done, and because I'm going through this now, I'm definitely going to be teaching this, you know, the light body training and mastery, because this is the next stage. And I've received a lot of beautiful writing that explains this and why this is so. So when it's time, it will all become available, but I need to take a breather for a while. And my life has been lived with so much intensity in the past few months that sometimes I just wish to lie down and just stay there lying down. But there's, you know, when I'm moving energy, I'm always much happier. So movement is like constantly engaging me with new aspects of live streams coming forth. So it's what I'm doing now. They're ready to start signaling new aspects, new information through me now, that the body, they were waiting for my body to adjust and, you know, be available, because the body went through much. Also a lot of, as you know, not so many pleasant things, which I had to overcome, but I did ever so graciously. And I'm really thankful, especially to the Spirit of the Cosmic Christ, my team, Aureus, my beloved Spirit Mother Aurea, and my beloved Aureon, and all of you here watching as witnesses and supporting. And that's it for now. It's getting cold, the sun went down, and I'll see you cross the threshold in perfect divine timing and alignment. As always, remember, everything is always calculated to the T. That's what they're showing me. So remember that. Stay awesome, and as always, so much love, wisdom, and power. Mwah. So much love. Bye for now.